Yeah, so these are the complete set of data types which we have, right, across divided in different buckets, right. So now let's take a few examples of how to define them, how we can actually access them. So normally, whenever we create any project in .NET, right? Let's say we have created a console type of project. So if you remember, we have many types of projects. So if you go to File, New, and Project, right? Now whatever you can see here, right, in this window, right, are the type of projects which we can create under complete Windows C#, right? So you can select, you can specify each and every, you can actually go into detail, right? If you want to create a cloud-based, project, you can go ahead, and web-based, right? Where you can see all, web-based MVC and all normal web forms applications and all, right? So in this we have created console application because we are going to learn the concepts of .NET first, like the programming patterns, right? What are different data types? What are different concepts? Multi-threading, files, collections, right? Or generics, and there are different things what we can learn. So we are going to see that one, right? Now, so here, so in the same project, right? You can create any number of classes you want. So yesterday we were talking about namespace. We understood what is class and everything. We said we'll get back to namespace after this, right? So let us understand that namespace first, and then we will go ahead with different classes. Now, so in your project, the main entity which we can, code or write code is a class file. Now this is a class file, and as we are using a C#, right? That's the reason why you can see the extension is program.cs, right? If you try to use your project for VB language, right, then it will be .vb, right? Those are the extension of files which .NET can understand. Fine. So let me create a new class now. So here, whenever you right click on this project or anywhere, right? Now let's say I'm going to add. Now here you have add option, and click on new item. Now this window again, if you remember whenever we created file new project, so that window was to create or select any type of project you want. But this window is, now this will give you all the options which you can add in a project. In a project I can add a class, right? In a project I can add a JavaScript file, right? Or any report or any HTML page or anything. So compatible items, right? .NET editor will actually give us whatever we can create. It will give all options, right? Let's say I'm going to create a simple class. Let me call it as my first class. Now this is a class which we created, which is my first class. Now here you can see, as soon as we created class, right, you can see few things got automatically added, right? Now what are these things? So these are nothing but the internal libraries of .NET. We are trying to use them in our program. That's the reason why you can see yesterday when we wrote console.writeLine, right? Now you can see each and everything, right? Whenever you type in something, you can see when I mouse over my console, you can see that pop window tooltip that it says it is a class under system. What does it mean? System is there. Now unwanted things you can remove, as as yesterday we were discussing, and let's keep only system. Why do we need system? System is a core namespace, right? Core namespace. So if you go back to our classes, you will see in a class library, the first entity which starts is a namespace, and in that you have all the classes and everything. Now this namespace I am talking about is something which is system, which is a internal to .NET libraries, right? So all classes, now you can see I said you have class, under namespace you have class. Now that class, one example is nothing but your console. Console is a class. You can see that class system.console. So your dot is a resolution operator. Resolution in the sense, if you want to access any method or predefined functions, you can see internal to class we have something functions or methods, right? Methods. So to access any functions or methods or variables, right? Variables. you need a resolution operator, which is a dot. Dot, you can get all the possible methods or variables you want. Now see here, when I click on console dot, right, you can see there are so many things which I have. So many things are properties, so many things are methods, so many things are variables and all. Don't worry about that, we'll come to each and everything. Right? Now that is our class which is under system. Right? That is your namespace. Now let's see, if I don't use this namespace, then what happens? Now if I don't use this namespace in my program, right, now, this program will never know what exactly is console. I know this will not have any idea. Why? Because I'm not using that corresponding namespace. Right? So this type of error, if you don't know any namespace. Now as I said, there is a system namespace under which you have console, right? So these type of things can be many. There are hundreds and thousands of classes which you can find in .NET under different namespaces. And how to remember them? Do you need to remember them? One thing is, as you go on with your experience in .NET development, right? All the namespaces and everything you will actually get into because you are developing by your own way, right? Or else, if you don't know, then you can actually right click on that. Then you have an option of resolve, right? Whenever you go to resolve, it will give you options. Now you can see, yes, this is in my using system namespace. Right? When you click on this, it will insert your using namespace, that virtual namespace, and then it will remove all the issues. This is the first way to do. Second way is, you can resolve in some other way, that you can actually write system.console directly. But if you do this, then only that particular issue will be resolved. Again, you have to write wherever there is a console, you have to again call your namespace, which is a redundant way. So instead of doing that, as we know that we can have a system and directly call your. And so this is how this is a namespace which are internal to .NET, which you can use for accessing the classes. Now, so you have one more very good feature in .NET editor, that you have an IntelliSense. Now this window, when you press Control Space, you will get something called IntelliSense. So this window is called as an IntelliSense window, right? So this will give you all the options of what you can use. Now let's say I want to type in console, right? Just start typing console. Now you can see your IntelliSense is so good that it will actually give you all the options. So if you remember in our Google, whenever you start typing in, right, it will actually give you the auto, based on your, the characters or words you enter, it will give you some options to select. Same way here you have your IntelliSense window, which will internally, based on whatever you type in. Let's say I'm typing in int. You can see under int it will give me all the options, right? If I'm typing something called class, it will give me all the classes, right? So let's say float, you can see that this window is called as the IntelliSense window, and this is used for internal libraries, right, or for the external, whatever user-defined libraries too, right? So that's how the IntelliSense works. Now let's go back to our program. Now that is something which is a, that is why we use using a library or namespace names here. Fine. Now let's go to the namespace. Now here we got a namespace of project. In the same way, in my first class also you can see we also got a namespace of the project. Why? Because we created my first class in the same level of my project. Now, but here you can see whenever you create a project, there are few things you got, right? Now, how can I use? See, in this namespace we have one more namespace. We have one more namespace. These are internal nested namespace we have in the system. Now, how can I create that in my user-defined classes? Now, this is how you can do. Internal to project, you can create multiple folders, right? So this folder, let's say this is my let me just call it as a biz folder, which is my business classes folder. So internal to this class, let's say I'm going to create one class. You can see here, when I right click on this folder and add, it will give me again options of what to select. If you select new item, it will go to the window, or else it will give you a direct options. Internal to folder, in this project, what can you create? You can create a class or component or anything. Let me create a class. Let me call it as my this class, my this one. You can see internal to this folder I created one my this. Now you can see the namespace got changed. Now what is the namespace? It will go to my project, get that main namespace, and it will create a separate namespace for my folder. That is the reason why we normally say namespace as a logical separation entity for classes. Now if you want to access this class, it's very important to access your namespace first. This is your namespace. Okay. So in this way, if you go ahead and create any number of folders in this hierarchy and create, you can get this type of namespaces. Right? But it starts with your main project name or the namespace which you mentioned. Right? You can always change your namespace of your project. How? You can just right click and go to properties. Here you will have something called default namespace. Right? Here you can, anyways, it will be by default the project name will be here, or else you may have to change something like let's say this. Normally I give my a company name. Let's say company name is srihub.com. This is my default namespace. I'll be using this. If I save this, so my project default namespace will become srihub.com. Now if I go back to any program or any class, let me create one more class in my biz. Let me call it as my biz2. Now you see here what happens. It will take the actual namespace, which is csintro.srihub.com, and then dot your biz. Right? You have dot biz, which is my folder name, and I got a project namespace. Right? So this is how we can actually create different classes in our projects. Fine. So let's go back here and see different data types. So let me close off. So here, let me create. Now, as we are checking out the first concept of C#, right, which is our data types, right? So let me create a new project here. Now, how to create a new project in here? This itself is a project, right? Now, where can I create a project? Under your solution CS intro, you can create a project. So right click on this, and you have a add new. You can see by default it will give you a project because I have created a solution. Click on that, and I want a project here. Let me give the project as data types. Now this is my project. Now you can see as soon as you enter your project type, you will actually get your program.cs and with a simple class called program. Now, so after creating a project, the second thing what you should do is, now my data types is something which I am working on, right? But you can see CS intro is still highlighted. Why? Because even if you run the program now, you can see it will give you hello world. But this hello world is program which we have written in my CS intro, not in data types. Now how to make my data types as a startup project. Whenever I run this solution, I want my data types project to get triggered. Then you have to select this as a startup. How to do that? Right click on this, and you have an option called set as a startup project. Click on that. Now you can see data types is a project which will be triggered whenever you start. Fine. So this is how we select. Now here, whenever I select data types, go to build, you can see rebuild data types, build data types or something. Same way, if you go back to CS intro, we have that. Now based on the selection of your project, this will change, but this will never change. It will always be the same. Rebuild your solution. When you rebuild your solution, now you can see it will rebuild both. It will build both CS intro and data types. Right? Now, let's get back to this and let's see different things here. Now here, if you want to change, you can change your namespace again. Now let me just show you how you can change. Let's say I'm going to give srihub.com, where I'm changing the default namespace. Save this and close the properties. Now, let's create a new program. Let's not use this program which is already being created. Let me show you from start. Let me create a simple class. Let me call it as my class. Now you can see by default when you create my class, it will give you datatypes.srihub.com. Right? And as they are created in the same level, right, it will give you the same values. Right? Now in my class, so here you can see in one project you cannot have two different classes which contains main method and the same namespace. Right? If you try to write your static void main of string array and arguments. Right? This is our main, right? This is our main. Now let's build this project. Now when you build this project, you can see it will give you an error. It will say that you cannot have compile with specified main entry point. Because what it will understand is, it will understand as such, it has got two different mains. You can see, right? It is already there. So let me just remove this main, or let me just say I don't have this. So let me just comment this. I can comment this method and rebuild it again. I can see at the bottom this line, right, where you can see the blue line, will actually give you all the recent status. Now you can see here the rebuild succeeded. Now whenever I start clean, let me clean, I can see clean succeeded. This is like the status bar which we have, which will give you all the details of whatever action you do, it will give you. Right? Now let's come back to my class here. Now let's see what how it works. Now here you have, now let's define the variables here. Now let me take a simple variable int. I have int, which is my data type, I is equal to 10. So this is my initial data type which I have, which means I am declaring an integer variable called I, right, and whose value is 10. Right? Now this will be allocating 4 bytes. If you remember, our integer is of size 4 bytes. Even if you give small value, even if you give 1 byte, it will actually allocate a full memory size to I, and data will be saved. That is your type. And this I can use it in my main. Now how can I use, let's say I want to print the value of I. Let's say I can print write line of value of I is, like this is one string, and I am trying to append this, which is right. See here, as soon as you type in I, right, it will give you all options, right? Now here, whenever I give I, it won't accept because this has to be static. Now you'll understand why this has to be static to use. You understand that? But as of now, see here, when I type I, you can see you will get I. So this I is nothing but my class, which is your class, and dot I. I is nothing but your variable. So this is a simple way how you can actually access your data type. Now here let me write console.readLine so that I can hold the console screen till I provide my key. Now let's run this. I can see the value I of I is my program which actually got prepared. Now this is how we write program in a class. So outside class, as I said, you won't be able to write anything. So here this is my class, right? If I try to do something for float 7, I mean I'm just taking an example, float some t. Now this is a simple line I've written. Now by this time you should understand that data types are defined in this way: data type, class, and its variable name. Right? I'll see here outside of class, if I try to do something which says you cannot write something out of class, or you cannot write directly in namespace. I can write this in here. Right? This is how I can write this. So now let's move ahead to different data types here. Now here you can see I have a float. Now there are a few things which we have to understand. Now you can actually go ahead with byte. Let me say b is equal to something 12, right? Where I'm actually taking a byte variable. And you have long. You have a class you can see here, which let me say L. You can take some number which is higher n. And you can actually have a char. Now we are actually learning some integer types. So you can have char c is equal to. Now here there are two things. Your character always should be declared in a single quotes, which is, let's say, A I'm taking, and your string. This is a string which you have defined. A string type should always be in a double quotes. Now your string is a collection of characters, but you have to mention it in a double quotes. And this is a significant variation which .NET can understand that, okay, if you define something on a single quote, it's a character. And internally it will actually convert it to integer type. Right? And whenever you try to retrieve, let me just call C also, C which is my character. if I run this, you can see here you have 1 and A. 1 is nothing but your I value and C value is A. Right? So whenever you print, right, it won't, whenever you read C, it won't give you quotes. Quotes are only to make my .NET program understand that I am giving a character. That is your A. Fine. Same way, let's take an example of float now. Floating, how we can actually define now. So in floating, now anyways, your integer types you can define directly. They are straightforward, like int I, long L and all. But your float and double have got a special, difference here, right? What is the difference? Now, whenever we define, let's start with double. Whenever we define double, right? Double, let's say D is equal to some number and decimal. Now, this is your decimal value. You have a real number here which you have assigned to D. Now, D, what in .NET, whenever you define any real number, it is by default a double. Okay? Now why I am saying this sentence is because of this. Let's say I am going to declare a float. Again, we know that float takes only real numbers again, right? Now let me just take a real number. Here you can see I know that float will take a decimal value, but you can see here, even if I define a decimal value, why it is not taking? Because, as we said, whenever you define any number which is a real number, it always thinks that this is a decimal. Sorry, double. Now what you are doing, you are actually trying to convert your double to, you are actually trying to assign a double value to float. Right? That is the reason why you always should append your value with F to make sure that whatever value you have defined is nothing but it. Now this F is not this one. This is a variable. Let me call it as F20. Don't get confused. This F is a standard F. It conveys that whatever decimal value or a real number you have defined is nothing but a float, and that float can be used in F20. Okay. Same way, let's go to decimal. Decimal, let me call DEC is equal to, let me give some number. Right? Now this is your double. Again, these are double, right? Now double, I can't actually assign it to decimal. So in order to do that, suffix with M. If you suffix any decimal value or a real number with M, that is nothing but your decimal data type. When you suffix with F with your any real number, that is nothing but your float. And if you define a direct value, then that is nothing but double. This is a specific and special conditions which we have in decimal terms. Now why do we have to define these many? Because your double is of 8 bytes, right? And your float is of 4 bytes and your decimal is of 16 bytes. The highest memory data type we have, which is a decimal. And this is how we define our floating or decimal data types. Now here the next one is a boolean, which is a boolean. Now in boolean, let me take as BLN. We have two different values. Either it can be true, right, or it can be false. Only you can actually save these two values in boolean, right? And this is one bit where it will save either 0 or 1 based on the value you are assigning. If you assign false, it will set 0 as the internal value, and if you assign true, it will set 1 as the internal value. And you can actually get the BLN. Now let me print the BLN also in this. Let me run this program. Now you can see whenever I run this program, I'm actually pressing F5. Don't get confused. I'm not always starting the program here. I won't always click on menus and all. I'll use shortcuts. If you don't get that, just let me know. Right? So whenever I start running program, what I'll do, I'll just click on F5 and it will run my program. Okay? Now here you can see I am printing I value is 1. I'm printing C value is A, and I'm printing BLN. You can see I'm printing false. Now you can see here I was in false here, and it will give me the actual value. It won't give 0 or 1. It will give you the actual value of false. This is something which is a Google. And the next one is your string, right? Your string type. let me call the string s is equal to, you can just say s hello world. Now this is your simple string here, right? Where you are assigning your hello world to s. Right? Now this is a simple string where your string always should be in a double quotes, right? And you can actually print that string. And run it, and you can see. Right? Now this is how you can actually define your data types. Now you can actually do some operations in between your data types also. Like let's say I want to add two numbers, right? I want to add two numbers as such. Like let me just write one more console dot write like of. Now here what I'll do, I'll add, let's say, B and L, right? Let me add that B plus L, right? Now here what I'm doing, I'm actually printing a value, and what is the value? The value should be sum of B and L. If you run this, you can see 2, 3, 3, 5, right? Which we added 2, 2, 2, 3, and 1. It will give you sum of values. So in this way, you can do many operations between the data types. Now this is how we normally declare data type and do some operations. Right? Now, the next one is, sometimes you may have to convert your one data type to other data type. Right? Now, the meaning what I'm saying here is, let's say I'm taking one more node. Now you can define any number of data types in a method or class, right? So in class you can say, in my class I have defined internal to this method I have defined some variables. You can define variable even inside your class or even in your method also. But that is only for variables. But you can't write code. Now this is a variable defined, right? And this is a variable defined, everything are variable. But this is something which is a code. I can't write this console dot write line outside my method. No, it is not allowed. Now if I try to do this, right? Now you can see it won't allow. Let me just copy this here. Or copy this here. Right? Now this doesn't have any scope. Right? Because there is nothing which can trigger this statement. Right? Until unless you write your actual logic in a method, right, it won't allow you to write outside your method or inside your class. Right? So that is the reason. That's the reason when we normally call methods as functions. They are the actual function types. Right? Now here let's see what is something called using data type conversions. Data type conversion is nothing but, let's say I have different data types, right? I may want sometime to convert one data type to other data type, right? So here in this conversions, right, we have two different types of conversions. Let's talk about type conversions. Sorry. Now, why do we need type conversions? Just we may get something like, you are getting an int and you want to convert it to long. You are getting a character and you want to convert it to float. Now, anything you may get. So in type conversions, you have two different types of conversions. We have first one as an implicit conversion. We normally call it as implicit type conversion, right? And the next one you have your explicit type conversion. Now first let us see what is implicit one. Now this is a straightforward one. Your implicit type is nothing but your conversion is type safe. Now what does it mean? If you try to convert your small data type to large one, then this is nothing but your implicit type. Now for example, let's say you have a long type, or sorry, int type, and you are trying to convert it to long. This is acceptable. Why? Because both are integer types and your int is 4 bytes and your long is 8 bytes, which means you are trying to accommodate 4 bytes of memory to 8 bytes, which is allowed. Like let's say your hard disk is 5 GB hard disk, and what you are trying to do, you are trying to copy the complete contents of your hard disk into the external hard disk whose memory size is 1 TB, right? It will fit in easily. All your 500 GB data can be easily fit into 1 terabyte external hard disk. This is like that. This is something which we say smaller type to larger type. So this doesn't need any type conversion. It will automatically gets assigned. Now let me show you that. Let me take one more variable called long ln is equal to. Now here I have I, right? I value is 1. Let me take I here. Now which means what I am doing, I am assigning the value of I integer to my long ln, right? Which means you can see I am not using any typecasting or anything. I am just assigning and it will take the value. Let me print that. Right, let me run this. Now you can see without any confusion or exception or anything, it will give me 1. Same way, you can take your decimal and double. Right? Your decimal is something which is a larger type than your double. Right? Now you can say decimal. Let me take one more value of decimal. Let me call it as DEC1 is equal to, let me call it as D. Right? What I am doing is I am actually trying to give the value of D. Now you can see here again it says explicit conversion is not possible, which means you have to convert your double again, but it will take the decimal directly. Right? Let's say I am trying to convert your long this time. Right? What does it mean? I am trying to convert an integer type here, right, to decimal, which is allowed, right? Because integer, the maximum size of long is 8 bytes and decimal is 16 bytes. That's the one reason. Second reason is your decimal can hold both whole numbers and real numbers. Now integer doesn't have a decimal, but that's fine. But it can be accommodated in decimal, right? So that's the reason why you can see DEC1 will take it. So let me just print that one. DEC1. If you run this, you can see it will easily take the value. Right? Take the value. 232. This is something which is called as your implicit conversion or implicit type conversion. Now, what is explicit type conversion? This is something which is very important. Right? So, in your explicit conversion, what we are doing is, this is not a type safe again, right? Now, this is not, first thing is, this is not type safe, and second thing is, you will be converting your larger data type to smaller one. Now, why do we have to do this? Sometimes you may get a situation where you have to do this, but that is there is a risk there, right? Let's say you are trying to convert your long data type into your int. Let's say. So here, let me take one int. Some z is equal to 10, right? And let's say not int. Let me take it as long. That is equal to 10. And let's say I have a int value, which is y is equal to, I am trying to assign z. So what does it mean? Now you see, this is a long value which is of 8 bytes, and you have an integer which is of 4 bytes. Now, how can you accommodate 8 bytes value into 4? Right? It is, I mean, theoretically you can see that it is not possible, but let's say, now take an example, same example again. Let's say, so in this situation, what we are doing 500 GB of data in your hard disk. You are trying to fit into 1 TB, which is 1000 GB, which is correct, right? But here, what you are doing, you are trying to accommodate 1000 GB hard disk into 500 GB. Now, till what time it is valid? Now, let's say in your 1000 GB hard disk, let's say you have data only 200 GB. Anyways, your complete size is 1000 GB, but the data in it is only 200 GB. Now, can I fit this into this? Yes, obviously. Now, whenever this situation is okay, at that time your conversion can happen, because your till in your 8 bytes of data, if your data is only till under 4 bytes, it can be easily fit into long or int. But for that, it will not take directly. You have to implicitly convert. You can see here that your implicit no, conversion will not work. You have to explicitly convert it. How to convert a long into int? You can see I am trying to convert one data type to my int. So whenever you want to do that, then use your brackets and what type I want to convert. I want to convert to int. Then just say int here. Now this is how you can convert your long, a larger value to your small types using your braces and int. Now this is nothing but your explicit conversion from a larger data to small. So this will, now you can use by where it will actually show up your long value. Now this is 10. Now this is what we call as an explicit conversion. Now in this conversion we have one more important thing. Let's say I have a string. Let's see something from string to our integers of string, right? Let's say I have string s1 is equal to some 23. Now obviously this is again a string, right? I can have any number of characters I want. Now let's say I want to convert this string to int or long. That means L2 is equal to, can I give s1 directly? Right? Now this is not possible because what I am doing, always keep in mind that if you remember, we were talking about string and we said this is an object type, almost an object type. Now which means object is something which can hold anything, but we can't convert object to the defined memory data types, which means this is not correct. Now how can I convert this? Can I use, the one which we use now? Can I use this and convert? Now you can see you cannot convert again using your normal legacy one. No, you can't do that. Now for converting your string types to any number types, right, we have a specific format to follow, or you have a certain predefined methods internal to that type of variable. Now let's say I want to convert to long. Now which means you have to go to long data type and you have a method called parse. So this parse will actually take a string value and then it will convert, it will pass through the string and it will take the characters and then it will convert to long. Now this is how you can actually convert your string data type to long. Now let me print L2 here. And now you can see this 23 is string, we convert it to long, now it is 20. Same way, if you want to convert this to, let's say, int, let's say I3. Again, I can't directly give S1 here. Now this is not allowed, right? Because string is an object type where the int is your specific, right? There is a specific data which is object type which you are converting to int. Now you can't do that. Now again, you have to parse it. Now as you are trying to convert it to int, go to int and just say parse. This will be converted to int. Same way you have for other things. It can be your let's take an example of float parse. You can see you can give string any number type, right? If you have a string and try to convert, then obviously you can. Now again, this is something which is an explicit conversion. Why? Let's say if I give to 23a, what will happen? It will not run. It will give me an error. Right? Let me try to run this. Now you can see it will give me a fatal error. Don't worry about this, we'll understand how to handle this and all. Now you can see input string was not in a correct format. Right? This will give you error. Right? That whatever you are doing is not correct. Right? So this needs a separate handling and all. Right? So that is something which is not correct. Fine. So that's the reason whenever you say parse, it will parse through, and whenever it finds anything uncertain, it will actually give you a fatal error. A fatal error is nothing but an error which can crash your program, which can crash your application. Okay? So that is your fatal error. Now in this you have something called constants also. So const is a type, or I would say access modifier or non-access modifier, which you can define for any data type. Let me just take short SHRT is equal to 34, let's say. Now whenever I define this, it means that I assign 34 value to short, which should never change. The const is nothing but you are defining a constant, right? We are defining a constant which is nothing but a constant. Now here let me just try to change short is equal to 45, right? Now you can see here the left hand side of assignment must be a variable, property or index and not a constant value, right? But can I assign I3? Yes, I can assign. Why? Because this is a variable type, but this is a constant. So that's the reason why you can define a constant whose value will never change. Once you define a constant and assign some value, that's it. That is the while declaration time itself, whatever value you assign, so this value will stay until your application is completely disposed. That is something which is called as a constant data type. And this can be anything. You can use constant for any data type. You have constant byte, constant long, constant float, anything. Right? So this is something which is about your data types and data type conversions and the constants which you can have. Right? And also you can also have a constant for your string too. Right? You can just say constant here, then your string value will never change. Right? So these are the data types we have and different things what we have. Now, if you remember, we said all data types, right, are under object. What does it mean? Any data type I can fit into object. When I say fit into, which means I can implicitly convert them to object. Right? Let me just show you. Object is also a type. You can see when I type in object, you can see I have an object. Let me call it as obj is equal to, I can give anything. Pick any value here. Let me just take DEC. You can have DEC here. No issues. It will fit anything we want. Take ln. Take ln here. Now this doesn't need any conversion because everything whatever we have seen till now comes under object. And object is like a daddy of all these types. Right? You can hold any data of any data type in here. It can also hold a string. Doesn't matter. If you want S1, you can give S1 here. Right? I'm using that S1 value. As I said, string can hold any big string you want. Right? Now that big string also can be accommodated in your object. So object is something which is like a parent of all types and everything. Right? Which is a generic type as such, which can easily implicitly convert any type to your object type. Right? So this is about data types and conversion set of things. So any questions till now? Going to get into more deeper of C#, with .NET, more and more programming types, guys. Now here, let's take a use case and then let's move to arrays. Now let me take a use case of something called student. Right? Students or there is a school, right? Where we need a program, right, to take or to accept students and create an ID for them. Right? So that is a program which we need. Now here, normally whenever what we do whenever we are creating the first program, let's say there are 10 students in my first year of right. Then let's say students, school management is asking us. Let's say we are providing a software to them. They're asking, in my school there are 10 students and I want to feed them in system, and my program should accept 10 student IDs. Then normally, what do? Let's say we are defining this. Let's say I'm defining int because it can take integer values, right? Let's say S1, which is my student one, and let's say I'm giving this ID. Same way, let's say I'm taking S2 and I'm giving this ID. And there are different IDs. S3 and I'm giving this. Now and so on. Let's say we gave int S4 or sorry S10. Right? What we did here. Now what we have done is we have created a program where we have created 10 different variables. Right? Now this is nothing but I've created an S1, and this can save only one number, right? Can save only one number. Now that number can be one student's ID. Same way, if you have to save 10 different students' ID, what to do? You have to create a 10 different variables, and then you can assign an IDs. Perfect. Now first program, whatever you gave, work with 10 students, which is okay. Next year, school expects 100 students. But 100 students will join. And what happens? Then again you have to rewrite your program and define 100 different variables. Let's say after 3 years again he says I have 10,000 students and I want to accommodate. Then what happens? Now this type of programming is not allowed. Now there will be a much confusion here. Well, let's say if we have 10,000 students and let's say you want some 679 students ID, then what will you do? You can't remember your variables and say, okay, 679 student IDs, so also, right? Now this is ridiculous again, right? Now this is the reason why we have, to actually get rid of this issue, right? We have something called arrays, right? Arrays is a storage of list of same data type elements. Now, when I say this statement, it is a storage of list of same data type elements, which means I can save multiple values in one variable of same type. That is nothing but your arrays, right? Now obviously it will be very good, right? If I have 10,000 students and if I can save that only in one S1, then it will be great, right? Instead of having 10,000 variables, if I can save everything in one variable, that will be great. So that feature is nothing but your arrays. And how to declare an array? Now array, as I said, it's a storage element of, you can actually save multiple data of same data type in one variable, right? So the main declaration is in this way. So let's say I want to define an array of integers, right? Because we want an array, right, of typing, because all my IDs are of type integer. Now you can define that in this. You have an int type and use your square braces. Now if you remember in our main method, if you remember, I said we'll be discussing this later, right? Now this is what we have, right? Now this symbol is nothing but you are defining that your int is going to be an array type, and I'll give one variable. Let me call it as some ARR is my variable. Now, which means in ARR you can actually assign any number of values, but you have to mention what is the size of that array. Now that mentioning is nothing but initialization. So arrays have got three principles. First is your declare array. Now this is nothing but you're declaring an array where I have an int type array and the variable. This is a declaring array. And the second rule is construct array. Construct array is nothing but, now if you just define this, right, it will not help us. It will never help us. You have to instantiate or construct your array with some size. Now how to do that for constructing? Remember this, for constructing anything in C# or .NET, we use a keyword called new. New is nothing but instantiating your, right, instantiating your class or instantiating your array. Here you give int of, let's say, 5. Now this is something which is called as a construction. Now here we are mentioning that yes, my type of ARR is nothing but your integer array, and I can allow this variable to accept 5 different values. Same way, if you want 10,000, let's say I'm giving 10,000. You just have to change your size. That's it. You don't have to declare variables. See how good it is, right? You have to declare variables, but here just go and change the size of your array, and that's it. It will accept your different values. Now this is something which is construct. A third one, important one, is to initialize, right? Initializing of your array. Now here let's see how to initialize. Now third rule is initializing your array, which means feeding your array or filling your array in filling values into array, right? Now that is something which is a very tricky part. Now whenever you define any array, right, internally it will actually create some types. Let's say I'm just taking it 5 again, right? Let me show you how it is created. So here, whenever you create a int array type, right? Let's say I've created int array ARR, we said, and we are saying it as new int of 5. Whenever you say this, right? So internally it will actually create an array block for you, right? And it will create 5 different blocks. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, before this, let me just go back to the legacy one which we are seeing, int I. Whenever you say int 5 is equal to 10, what does it mean? It will create a separate block of memory for you and it will say 10. This is what we have, right? So this way, whenever you define int array, which means of size 5, it will create this type of boxes with this size, right? Which is 5. And each and every box is nothing but your individual integer variables. Now this is defined with 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this is nothing but your index of your array. Right? Now if you want to say first value, we'll use 0. Now how to define that? This is your ARR, which means this complete block. Now this simple box is defined with a name called I, right? So whenever you say I, which means you are representing this. Now here, whenever you say ARR, which means you are representing this complete set. Right? So now here, whenever you want to save data, which means initializing data, now you have to use this ARR, and you have to use brace here and say which value you want to save. I want to save value of 0th position, which is 0th index, is equal to, let's say, 10. Now this value will be saved here. Same way, ARR of 1, let's say it's 2, will be saved here. Same way, ARR 2, let's say 15, saved here. 22, saved here. 42, saved, and so on. Now this is how you can initialize your array. Now you have built your variable, you have done your construction of your array, and then you have initialized your array. So these are 3 principles which you have followed, and your array is ready. This is how internally array looks. Fine. Let's go ahead and see a simple example of array. Now let me create a separate class for this. Let me call it as arrays. Now here again, obviously, if you are going to the next class, you should not have any method as such, right? So let me just remove this. And in my class array, I will create a static argument. You can see your intelligence will actually make your program to code in a very fast way. But normally if you type in, right, it will take at least time. Your intelligence will actually reduce it at least with 80% down. And you can actually code in a very fast manner. Now here, your array. So I can define array in this way. Like int array, I have taken ARR is equal to new. I am initializing my int of size, let's say 5. Now this is how I declare one concept. So to assign values, I have ARR of 0 index is 20. Same ARR of 1 is 34. Same ARR of 2, right? Some value. Now each and everything is again integer values. 3. And your ARR of 4. Now why do we have till only 4 is, now my index starts from 0, which means if I have 5, which means the maximum index will be 4, right? If you start from 0. And this is how you initialize your variables. Now, when it comes to memory, right? Let's see what does it happen when it comes to memory here. Now here, we know that your integer is a 4-byte one, right? It takes 4 bytes. Now here you can see these are set of integer values. Right? Then what does it mean? Each block here is nothing but a separate integer which takes 4 bytes. What does it mean? If I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values, which means 5 integer values into 4 bytes are 20 bytes, which means this single variable ARR is of size 20 bytes. Even if you fill data or not, it doesn't matter at all. Whenever you define this set, automatically your ARR is going to take 20 bytes of memory allocated. Right? So that's how your array works. This is something where you initialize your array. Okay? So now the next thing is how to retrieve data. I mean, we have initialized how to get the data. Now to get data again, right? If you have assigned a values to this, how can I get data? It's simple. Go ahead with your ARR and say I want 0th value. Now how can you say 0th index value? Again your brace. Let me write that your console dot write line. Let's say I want the 4th value. What does it mean by 4th? Your index will be 3, right? Because your 4th value will always be saved in your 3rd index. Now let me write console.read line so that I can block my index. Now when I run this, you can see 43. You can see 43 is nothing but a 4th value. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is saved in 3rd index. Now you can see you can read your 43. Now this is how you can read your array. Right? Now, second thing, if you are trying to read some value which is not there, which means you are using an index, right, which is out of your size. Now here we said we can actually have a 5 size number, but we are trying to access 8, which is a high value. What does it have? Now when you run this, see what happens. When you try to run, you can see it says index out of bounds of array. Now this is again a factor error. Fine. Now this is array, now which means you always should follow at least the indexes of your arrays. It should be, but whenever you are calling, it should be at least the maximum index, which is 4, and below that. It should not be beyond that. If it is beyond, then it will give you an error. Right? To actually fix that, you have an internal property of ARR. Now you can see when you define a variable of type array, you will get so many internal things. Now let me show you one thing called length. Now this length is nothing but it will give you the length of your array. So let me take right line. I'm just printing the length. Let me make it to again back. When I run this, you can see length of array is 5. Length is nothing but the number of elements which my array can hold. It can hold 5 values, and you can see I'm printing 4th value, which is 40. Now this is how you can have the values initialized and retrieved in arrays. Fine. So this is about the startup of arrays, how we define and all. Right? We'll see more on how to define multi-dimensional arrays and all in our tomorrow's class.